Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who wasn't going to review anything this weekend. Tomorrow, I'm getting on an airplane, I'm flying to Hungary, I'm going to be spending 3 weeks in Europe, and Serbia, and Austria, and France, and all that stuff. And I'm all set. Like, I recorded a bunch of videos ahead of time, but I have a little bit of time now. Okay, everything's all packed, flight's leaving pretty soon, but I can't leave you without talking about the new JPEGMAFIA Danny Browns, quote, DLC pack. And now it's funny because I actually referred to the Beach House EP from earlier this year as DLC for their previous album. And here, Danny Browns and JPEGMAFIA are like literally calling something DLC. And it makes sense. It functions in a similar way where it's like the same thing but a little bit more, in the same way as most DLC packs are. If you hear the sounds of buttons in the background, my kids are still playing Zelda. The DLC has yet to be announced. Also, it's a little bit of sadness, you know? When you live in Western New York, so few good shows come by, and JPEGMAFIA and Danny Browns are coming to Buffalo in like 2 weeks, and like, oh, we would have been, and it would have been great, and I would have seen so many auditors, and it would have been such a wonderful, delightful time, but can't make it. You know, can't make it. Going to be in heat wave Europe. So, I really did enjoy this a lot. I found this to be an interesting project. I was not a fan of the cover, glamorizing vaping. I mean, I get it, you know, they're being edgy and all that. But I'm actually going to make this video a fundraiser for the Lung Association. What's it called? The American Lung Association? The American Cancer Society. There you go. No, the Lung Association. I'm going to do this for the Lung Association, right? That's a thing, right? Let me look this up. Lung Association. Yeah, the American Lung Association. Because vaping is not cool. You think, hey, we don't know how it's going to kill you. It's going to kill you. We just don't know how it's going to kill you yet. So hey, you can be a guinea pig. You just jump right in there and wait to see what kind of horrible death awaits you, or you can stop. And anyways, so thanks to the American Lung Association for helping people stop, because they have a 1-800 number that you can call. Anyways, beyond this little what do you call it? Public service announcements. Some people wondered if I'm doing okay. Because earlier today, I was listening to this. I had the inkling I might be able to just get a little bit of time to talk about this album. So I was sitting over there in the baby pit, right? That's where I play with my baby, 10-month-old baby. And I was listening to this album. And just the absolute insanity of these artists working together is so delightful. It's such a wonderful folie à deux that I tried to impersonate what the album made me feel like. And so in order to do that, I made a what the kids call a tic tac, and I tried to illustrate what it feels like listening to this album. So let's see how you think I did with this. And this is instead of having you actually listen to it. Here we go.
And now what it's like to listen to the DLC package from the thing.
No, you ain't.
I love Jesus.
No, you ain't.
Yeah, not my finest moment. I do seem a little unhinged. But what I was trying to get at was some of the fun contradictions of this album. I mean, there is this "No, you ain't" quote from, I guess, the second ever episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, said by Sandy Squirrel. Is that her name? Sandy Squirrel?
Cheeks.
Sandy Cheeks the Squirrel. Why don't they just call her Sandy Squirrel? Okay. But that really was what it feels like. It feels like it's the SpongeBob-inspired insanity with Danny Browns' voice. And I was trying to get the idea that it's always at war. Like there's this agreeable battle that seems to be happening constantly between JPEGMAFIA makes it that like the beat is at war with the beat. And then the beat is at war with Danny Browns. And that's all this just delightful, controlled chaos. Lots of weird gospel in here. That's why I had a little bit about Jesus. And then, of course, just some typical Danny Browns lyrics. Dicks and Fent. Which, anyways, if you haven't smashed the like bucket yet, you probably never will. So let's go with the first track. Guess what, B-word? We back. H-word. Despite the fact they're continuing on this like ironic misogyny of scaring the hose. They're still doing it, but it is still not a particularly misogynist project. And really, I think the hoe is spiritual. Now, the problem is that they're saying anyone can be a hoe. The problem is they're implying that a hoe, which is a gendered term, is an inherently negative thing. But I'm not here to do a full feminist discourse on the term scaring the hose. I already did that in the last album. But I like this because it's triumphant, you know, that they're back. And it has this real celebratory feeling because they're both so mysterious and idiosyncratic. The idea that they work together is like, oh my God, they did? How did that happen? And then not only did they work together, but they're doing a little bit more. This is what I'm talking about, the beat here. This is what I'm talking about, the war. Like the odd pitched up soul sample is at war with the drum sample. And no, you ain't, says Sandy Squirrel. Sandy Cheek Squirrel? Is there any squirrel in her name at all?
No.
Okay, Sandy Cheeks. Throw it back for a thick boy. I'm an outcast, still outlast. Your favorite rapper, no hits boy. That's how he starts off, but I had to read the lyrics because you don't hear anything Danny Brown says. Because JPEGMAFIA is not obsessed with clarity. He's obsessed with feel. He's obsessed with this crazy, chaotic emotion. And so Danny Brown is totally washed out until it like slows down a little bit. And we get to the line, I'm Detroit Red on a whole lot of X. So it's a drug line at the end, which is sad because he's talking about recovery in the first part of Scaring the Hose. Hopefully this is fanciful and not true. Hopefully he's still on the wagon. But Detroit Red, of course, is a reference to Malcolm X, so that's the kind of joke on a whole lot of X. And I just want to say I got a message on Instagram from somebody, Rap Empire, who said that they bought Black Jacobins and Autobiography of Malcolm X, and they wanted my opinion because they bought those books on my suggestion, which they should read first. I said the Autobiography of Malcolm X. You can't go wrong. If you ever want to send me a message on Instagram, you know, like you buy a book and you want to know, go for it. I might not answer, but I might. But what's great is he takes it one step further. You know, I'm Detroit Red on a whole lot of X. Hand ain't in my pocket, and I got that check. So famously and sadly, the last words is that Malcolm X ever heard were "get your hands out of my pocket." That's what either the assassin said or somebody who was in the room where he was, the Audubon Ballroom in Harlem, New York, if I remember correctly. I do. That where that assassination happened, like if you listen to the audio tape, there's just some guy saying, "Get your hand out of my pocket," and it's a very unsettling thing. And then the chorus. So at this point, the lyrics are a lot clearer. Then we get to this chorus where I think JPEG, Jim Margaret, is putting out some kind of like double drums with this nice kind of stutter effect. And then we have a real catchy chorus. Guess what, ho, we on, feeling like Mike, just leave me alone. And the more I listen, the more I enjoy Danny Brown's flow, especially because, you know, when I reviewed, you know what I'm saying, way back in the sweaty days, but before my channel had any traction, I just liked it. It was just all sex lyrics, and there's very little of that here. I will say that ever since I did that interview with Billy Woods and he talked about working with Danny Brown, I mean, if you haven't seen my interview with Billy Woods, it's good. But we end up talking about working with Danny Brown on probably the best track of the year. And the way that he describes it. So first of all, Danny Brown is funny because Billy Woods thought that he was being ghosted by Danny Brown, but really Danny Brown respected Billy Woods so much that he wanted to bring like the best possible verse. So it was the opposite of disrespect. It was excess of respect. And then like when he finally showed up to the studio, he just rolled in with like, 30 people or whatever. And then when he rapped, he had 2 phones. And Woods just didn't understand like what is going on with 2 phones? What's happening? So now when every time I picture Danny Brown rapping, I was like, one's Verizon, one's T-Mobile? I don't know. Then we get to JPEG's verse, and it's funny because it's a perfect foil to Danny Brown. There's a clarity to his voice, money won't save you, B-word. It's like they're 2 different kinds of cool who interact really, really well. And then at the end, there's just JPEG just shows off, has this great breakdown with I'm ready, more of a pitched up sample, and then ends with a little video game sound. My kids were asking me how long is this going to take. I said, it's a 14-minute album. How long could I possibly take? And they were like, an hour. Next song is called Hermanos. I don't know if that's an Arrested Development reference. I'm going to find out who this Hermano person is. It's probably not, but who knows. This starts off, so rap artists have often sampled the crackle of vinyl. Makes sense. They often sample vinyl. This is the most crackly vinyl of all time. We got these sweeping strings and this orchestra, and it's this like almost James Brown style song. It turns out it's an Ecuadorian love song by an Ecuadorian singer. But really, this is where the romantic sweep of this beat feels like it's at war with Danny Brown's style. Narcissist arsonist in my arsenal got carpal tunnel because I was holding that awkward. You know, just like it doesn't quite go with the sound. Let the truth prevail, as the king of pop said. Ain't F with no perks since they found Prince dead. You know, there is a real sort of undercurrent between both of these versions, with Danny Brown struggling with addiction and talking about his relationship to drugs, both sort of glamorizing them and also acknowledging that he doesn't want to do them anymore. Rest in peace, Eric Garner, because I can't breathe. Smoking Lucy's on the same corner. Used to serve fiends. So this is really just a very dark and interesting image. Obviously, Eric Garner was murdered by the police. Or from another angle, he was killed by the police. There's two ways of looking at it. But the idea of like smoking Lucy's, you know, so that's when people buy single cigarettes, which implies a certain amount of desperation, not enough money to buy $10, maybe a lack of ability to understand that you're as addicted as you actually are, and you're sort of trying to pretend like you're in control by just buying one and not buying 20, whatever it is. But it's a very interesting idea because he's on the corner and it's the same place where he used to sell crack to fiends, and so he's very clearly drawing this parallel between him and them. And even though he's in this elevated place now where he no longer has to serve fiends through addiction, he's actually brought down to their level because he is on a corner feeding his addiction. See? I'm not just clowning. Danny Brown's not just clowning. One thing this album is showing you, he does not mess around. Like, don't do that again. He's like, he is very serious about being the way that he is, and he very clearly thinks about it very deeply. We then get to JPEGMAFIA's verse, which starts off with the line, Black Konami Code. So, I suppose this is like, okay, oh my god. See, this is too much. This is too much. This is too much. I don't think I'm going to get this done in 14 minutes. Spoiler. So the Konami Code is a famous thing that all nerds know, which is the way that you get 30 lives or whatever at the beginning of the game Contra. You could give me 100 lives in the game Contra. I'm not beating that game. I own that game. First of all, very lame that the game was called Contra. It was supporting the war on drugs, which it is supporting the Contras, which themselves were supported by Reagan, and which were actually partly funded by all the drugs that were being sold and flooding the streets and creating the crack epidemic. So the Contras, I've always been upset that this awesome video game was called Contra, you know? Like, it'd be like if the coolest video game were called, like, Gestapo Kill Squad, okay? But beyond that. So it's like up, down, left, right, B, A, start. I think that's what it is. I didn't look it up, okay? That's what I remember from being a kid. I preferred the game Ikari Warriors because you could just do A, B, B, A every time you died. And that game I could beat. But then Black Code, I believe, is a reference to probably Louis XIV's and Mazarin's Black Code, which was a rule to regulate slavery in the French West Indies, that dictated whether or not a slave, you know, that gave slaves the ability to have Sunday off because they were Catholic, but also instituted very specific rules for how they would be passed on, like furniture, from generation to generation. It's a very complex document, very interesting document, part of the complexity and the cognitive dissonance that existed in an age where the Enlightenment was happening while the triangular slave trade was being solidified. So the cognitive dissonance, like all people are equal except for those people who aren't equal. But don't worry, they're not people, they're chairs. But we better baptize them anyways. But they're just furniture. So that's the Black Code. So Black Konami Code. Yeah, I could just I'm not going to. I could spend another hour talking about the Black Code. It's very interesting. Put Tony on the mic like Pacino, good fella with the lines banging like De Niro. Let's get this clear, yo, the flows are blazing. Don't slip, don't slack. Now Rothstein in Casino. That's a reference. Just all these different lines to De Niro. Ace Rothstein was his character in the movie Casino. Don't slack. It might be a reference to his outrageous slacks or about the fact that he shouldn't slip. And then we get this last minute where it takes that sample and just completely blows it out with like these added bells. And the way that he does it, it reminds me of one of my favorite things about the album Yeezus that came out 10 years ago, which is the end of the song New Slaves. Okay, so you know the first part of New Slaves, do 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 do, but then there's that end with that snare. I can't lose, no, I can't lose. That whole bit. The reason that it reminds me of it is that this ending here is just a slightly altered version of this Ecuadorian song with some added things to it. The end of the song New Slaves is just a Hungarian rock song, like just cut and paste, like Puff Daddy in 1998 would be like, you need to do more to that sample to justify it. Like seriously, he just took it, but it's such a wild sample. It's such a wild sample that you don't hear it and go, oh, I know that song. You play it for someone from Hungary, from Serbia, from Montenegro, from Croatia. They all know this song. This song was huge. It was a huge hit. Anyways, so the song is called Yang Yahayun Lani, and the way that Kanye used it, just take something odd, put it in, and then add stuff onto it at the end of a song that makes you feel like you have a whole different song. It's an amazing feeling of richness and excitement. So I might do a whole video on Omega, actually, thinking about it. I'm going to be in Hungary, so maybe I should find out what they're all about. Next song is called Tell Me Where to Go. Hey, I talked to the hoes, and they're not scared. The hoes have heard this song, and they are totally comfortable. They are just relaxed, very. Like the rest of the album, they were like, just, oh my, what am I going to do? Stop, turn up. This came on, they were as calm as could be. Like, just zoned out and happy. It's an interesting idea to have a relaxed song. This song scares the bros. The bros who are sitting there trying to go to that show in Buffalo and punch each other and get all edgy. What is this? Some personal lyrics. Danny Brown normally his voice terrifies hoes, but here the voice is not scaring hoes at all. Like, it's just this very normal voice. I've been doing the most, but got nothing to show. I'm supposed to grow like a beautiful afro. It's about pain. And what's this all sample based on? Al Green. Al Green, historically, is the least hoe-scaring R&B singer of all time. With his beautiful high voice, his songs about loving and making up. I really enjoy Al Green. Well, actually, that's not true. I bought like 2 Al Green CDs, and I listened to them like nonstop for a month. And then it took me like 10 years to listen to him again. But his music is great. And like, this is great. Like, tell me where to go when your heart ain't in it no more. Like, there's a breakup verse. Whatever, makeup, you know who you mess with. And when I look back, it's still on read. He said on read, not on read. My kids are scared because I have a whole thing against the term on read. I think it's very unclear and it's bad language. But he calls it on read. Does anyone call it on read? They're saying no. Well, anyways, JPEG does. Margaret does. And now your real life is all you left with. Now, baby, tell me, what did you achieve? You blaming me for problems that you blessed with. Just a very sort of straight, interesting heartbreak song that came out of nowhere in this whole project. The final track is called No, 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 No. Alright. Actually, no, it's called, no, yeah, that's what it's called. And they're okay, so we're back. We're back in Ho-Scaring territory. Ho-Scare, Florida. this great like gospel blown out sample, because the whole no is taken from no turning back and I'm gonna follow Jesus now. Even in the verse, the way JPEGMAFIA says transform on these B words, like Optimus is showing how he's transforming all over the place on this track. Then there's this insane drum beat in the second verse, maybe the best JPEGMAFIA drum beat on the entire Scaring the Hose album and DLC. Just after there's this blown out crash cymbals, these drums just get so funky and so syncopatedly interesting, and you know, it's you never need this level of complexity when you have people at this level rapping and making music together, but then he just goes that extra level. Elf on the shelf but forgot where I put it. That's a Danny Brown lyric, and I swear to God I'm trying to figure out how it's about sex and drugs. Like, yeah, it can't be about Elf on the Shelf. So, please tell me in the comments, how is Elf on the Shelf a sex or drugs thing? Or, tell me that it's not a sex and drugs thing, in which case, I'm just happy. I'm just happy that Danny Brown is comfortable enough in wherever he is in his life to talk about Elf on the Shelf in the middle of a line. And then we get to the end, which is my favorite Danny Brown moment I think I've ever heard. Well, okay, besides his verse with Woods, because that's just insane. But this is great because it's a cappella. It's just Danny Brown's voice. You get the sense maybe there was a beat behind and they cut it out. And he's like laughing at his own jokes, like, like just really, really laughing at his own jokes. And he's just a clown, just a funny little guy, you know? But then he makes this subtle turn where it seems as though he's going to break into some kind of improv, just sort of spoken word talking. But then he keeps rapping in a different register. And that part where you thought that he slipped was actually his next dance move. You understand? So he's doing this kind of goofy dance and he's smiling and all that. And then you think he slips and falls and they're just going to keep it on the track because, hey, who cares? But actually, that was the transition to the next part of the dance. Remember the days for dinner when all we had was egg rolls? Ha 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 ha. But ended up with greens in bed rolls, eye rolls, and head shake could break any second. Gotta give, whatever, man. I'm extra cautious, or whatever you call it. Paranoid, I guess, but I feel like a target. And like that, right? So he's talking about egg rolls, but then all of a sudden, no, whatever, man. Like this, whatever, man, is just, I don't know. Tell me, rap people who know more than I do. What other rappers have like done this trick where it seems like they messed up and they're just calling it quits and then they start going again? Whatever, man. I'm extra cautious, whatever you call it, paranoid. I feel like I got a target. And then it ends with a great recapitulation of Socrates' final words. No, not we must sacrifice a cock to Aeschylus, which was Socrates' actual final words, which, come to think of it, Danny Brown would probably like talking about sacrificing cocks to Aeschylus. But his most famous words are all that I know is that I know nothing. That's what he said before he killed himself. And here's killed himself. Before he drank the hemlock, which he was forced to take by the state for corrupting the youth. Used to think I knew it all, but now I don't know. That's how it ends. Used to think I knew it all, but now I don't know. And maybe it's all tying back to these themes of addiction, you know? Like the sort of confidence and belief that you know more and you're more in control than you actually are. You know, used to think I know it all, but now I don't know. It's a beautiful statement. It's a beautiful concept. And it's a sign of real growth. Like that's actually where wisdom begins. Not knowing it all, but just I don't know. So there you go. Hey, under 25 minutes, not too bad. These are my Patreons. Thank you very much. They're helping me to buy music, and if I was able to go to that concert, they would help me buy tickets to the concert. But I'm not going. On a scale of 1 to 10, how annoying is my Danny Brown impression? You can tell me that in the comments. Also, if you leave the letters AVAA, which stands for Awesome Videos Always, I will always leave a heart, even on older videos. See if you can catch me. I'm checking at least once a day while I'm on vacation. All right, until next time, there's the camera.